Hello everybody to our course Macroeconomics, and now I was able also to book this room for our shift to Wednesday, so 10:15 in the future as 1, 2, 3, but I will give also an announcement in the Moodle course. So then, yeah, I think the next 3 weeks you are Tuesdays anyway, not in. And then let's go on. We are still in the, so to speak, introductory part of this lecture where I talk in general about macroeconomics and somehow also try to motivate what is this all about. And especially we have talked about these statements and yeah, posed this question, are these statements positive or normative? And as you remember, maybe this one, this was, so to speak, the concept of the market, which we have seen here. This were perfect substitutes. Here, this is the concept of external effects. And here, higher interest rate payments. This is financing investment via credits. Oops. And so also we can ask ourselves what is the general concept behind the question, should I invest via external financing? So using credits, and in order to ask ourselves if this is a good investment or not. And investment and financing, what I think you have there also talked about when you ask yourself, shall I invest or shall I not invest via a credit? Which concepts did you use there? I think this was the concept's net present value, isn't it? Or internal interest rates, so that you are comparing the return of your investment project relative to the cost of taking the credit, here the interest rate payment, and then you compared both, and if the net present value is 0, then you said, well, this is, so to speak, the point where it's quite okay, or if the internal rate of return is larger than the interest you have to pay at the capital market. So maybe here concept of net present value or internal rate of return, or very generally in economics, when you are comparing alternatives and then you make a decision to do one of these alternatives. For you, for example, sitting this morning here and not sitting in a cafe, being happy because of this very fine weather today. What are the costs you have by sitting in this lecture hall here. How do we call them? In a very general way. Yeah. Yeah, this is your hope that you get smarter and so to speak that you have in the future in 10 years a higher return compared to the situation having sitting in this lecture hall. This is for the comparison that you in the end that you are sitting here. But sitting here, what are the costs of sitting here? Pardon? Yeah. Yeah, this is the alternative, but in an economic way. How do we call this? That you're not sleeping at home or sitting in a cafe or doing anything else. Yes, opportunity costs. And this is maybe the core of economics in general is that we are almost at every time in every situation we have these different alternatives and then we are doing something and doing this not only means, so to speak, the specific costs. So you came here, maybe you drove by car, so you have to pay for the gasoline or something like this, but that in an economic way, we have these very general costs of not having done something else. And staying at home and sleeping, this has some utility for you. Sitting outside, looking in the sun, also I think a positive utility, but still you have decided to be here. So you, in your own judgment, prefer to sit here in this room and then not having done the other thing is then your opportunity costs. And in this example here, we then can say, well, we can quite good also monetarily specify the opportunity cost because doing one investment means that then not getting the interest at the capital market, or here then we can say, well, the opportunity costs are the interest rate payment for our credit. So also in a very general way, opportunity costs and well, this opportunity cost concept is what is almost everything in economics about. And there you have really to think of that this is a very broad cost concept, which you have here. Okay, then let's go on. Or, yeah, before I go to the next slide, well, then we could say this market or these perfect substitutes, this you have seen in microeconomics. This you have seen in investment and financing. Opportunity costs, hopefully, in almost every lecture. And this is what you will see then in this lecture quite often that I use or I say, well, here we are using something which you hopefully have already seen. And yeah, why then also macroeconomics here? I compare this to the concepts we use in microeconomics and also the different view which we have in microeconomics that we can say in microeconomics we look at one person or at one household, one company. And here we are looking at the whole economy. And this also then means we are analyzing one company, one enterprise, or one single person looking at his or her preferences, the revenue situation of one single enterprise. And in macroeconomics, then we are going to the macroeconomic aggregates, sprich, then we look at the sector of all households, generating then a macroeconomic demand, while if we look only at one household, then you have only the demand curve of one single person. And I think in micro, then you have done also this horizontal aggregation. When you said, well, I have from utility maximization, let's say this is individual one, the demand curve, and then you have another one which looks maybe like this, um, individual two, and then you aggregate these two in a horizontal way, and then you see you have here some kink, and this should maybe then look like this, and this is the horizontal aggregation of then the total demand curve overall if we look at all households simultaneously. And of course, out of the profit maximization, you obtain the supply curves, and then taking also adding up them horizontally under perfect competition. That means that you come to aggregate supply or aggregate production. And then, yeah, in macroeconomics, we look then also in some specific sectors, maybe the construction sector. We will later on, when we talk about how gross domestic product is calculated, we look then at the different sectors from the production side, and then we see also that this construction sector is quite important in an macroeconomic um, way, and looking at all enterprises together, then we end up with total investment. Why are we doing this? Oh, still my German version. Oops. Why are we doing this? Well, we want to get a deeper insight how the whole economy is functioning. And then, of course, we can think of looking then always simultaneously at every single enterprise, looking at these 80 million guys walking around in Germany, asking everybody for his preferences. In a theoretical way, we can do this, but we cannot do it practically. So this is why we are doing this. But on the other side, of course, we have to be careful, because then via this aggregation process, of course, we lose information. And for this, I made this statement below. Compare this what you have done in your introductory courses in statistics. There, I think you got some data, a data set, 20 data points. And what have you done then? Then you calculated the average of these data points, or you calculated the standard deviation. And why have you done this? Well, always looking at 10, 100, 1,000 data points, this doesn't help you for practical issues. But if you then say, well, on average, people spend 10 euros for food per day, with a dispersion measured in standard deviation of plus minus 2 or something like this, then you have an idea what is the information behind these data. But of course, then you have to be careful that you are losing information. Maybe you don't know that there are many outliers, 100 data points, and you have 10 with very, very extreme results. This you then don't find anymore in the standard deviation, the fluctuation around the average. And for this, you also have to keep in mind that maybe your insight is better, but you don't have the full information anymore. Yeah, in general, what are the questions we are posing in macroeconomics? Well, then we also want to look for the dependencies of our aggregate variables. One example is the impact. What is the impact of the labor market development? So maybe unemployment rates, how they develop over time on the whole economic development. Maybe what impact have the development has the development of unemployment rates on economic growth. Well, and then of course maybe one reasonable hypothesis is that the lower the unemployment rates, the higher is economic growth. Because then we think if many people are in work, that then the output is higher and economic performance is better. Or the impact of interest rate decisions of the central bank on the general interest rates. Of course, we have then free markets. There is some impact because we have some regulation that if the interest rates of the central banks are going down, then we have the hypothesis that the interest rate level in general in our economy is going down. But how is this working? What are the channels? How then the free market interest rates are reacting on central bank decisions? Then for Germany, a very interesting or important question is the impact of demographic changes in general. Well, maybe you know that especially in Germany, our society becomes older and older and older. So unfortunately, only a small number compared to the old people living here of children every year. The situation is like this. If we also ask for the impact on the labor market, that every year in Germany we have a gap of roughly 300,000 people dropping more out of the labor market, so are retiring, roughly 65 years old right now, compared to, let's say, 25-year-old people entering the labor market. Well, and then you can think of the question, is it economically a good idea to say, well, we don't want to have new people in Germany? From an economic standpoint, I would doubt that this would be for our society a good decision. Well, the United States have made already this decision to do this, and we have talked about already last Tuesday what maybe has this for an impact on their innovation potential. And then, of course, because I wrote here on capital accumulation, then you also can think of, well, older people, especially then retiring, they need their money they have saved before. So if you have a society which becomes older, then you also should not be surprised that there is not that much private investment in future investment project projects giving a return in 10 or 20 years. If you think of a person 70 years old, shall I invest in something which has a high return in 20 years? So that there, the so-called consumption quota is going up because they need now their money. They are not working anymore and then taking their savings. Or another one, which is of course very important right now, global changes in the relation of United States, EU, or maybe I think I should insert here also a versus right now. So the three largest economic regions in the world all are roughly of the same size. And well, right now we are not really cooperating. What kind of impact has this? And maybe we can then also have directly a look at this, what I've written here. This is maybe also some normative statement from my point of view that I say, well, this is the most powerful man in the world doing something depending on what his golf score was yesterday. So in my opinion, you cannot calculate anymore what he is doing. But this is then also an assumption. What shall I do about this? If he is saying, well, I'm lowering the tax rates or the tariffs, I don't know if the next day he says, well, let's say it's 100%. And this, of course, has unfortunately a very large effect on global economy and therefore also on our economy in every country. Also, about this we have talked in this normative statement. Our investment in climate change has, of course, an impact on the distribution of the income distribution and therefore also on economic growth. Hopefully in the long run with good decisions, but we'll see what we are doing. And the last very sad one, the Russian attack on Ukraine has of course a large economic impact, and especially if you look at Russia, Russia is roughly 4 times in area larger than the European Union, twice as large as the United States, and therefore you find many things which we need for a developed economy. So they are in almost every part, look at metals, look at energy, one of the largest or the largest supplier in the world. And therefore also, of course, we have to deal with the decisions of the other guy in Moscow. What has this for an impact on the economy in general? All these are macroeconomic questions, and then the reaction of the variables. This is what we should learn here in this lecture. That you really then can, not only from a normative point of view, but that you can also, theoretically argue what happens if this guy is doing this or another thing. And the last slide of my overview is then looking at these aggregates, reading these numbers in the media. What does it mean? What is our interpretation if economic growth in Germany the last year was minus 0.2%? Well, and for this, we have to know what is meant by economic growth. which aggregate do we use to measure to measure economic growth, and what does this outcome here means minus 0.2. Another very important variable, inflation rate. Well, everybody of you, I think, knows that this depends somehow on the development of prices in general, but how is this aggregate defined? How do we calculate it? And this is my hope that after this lecture, then if you are talking about inflation, interest rates are going down, what does this maybe mean for the development of inflation? That you both know when I'm talking about the interest rate level in a country, which number do I mean in general then? And if I talk about inflation, then also I know what kind of number is behind this variable inflation. Next one, if we look at our debt in Germany, it's now roughly 2.7 billion euros. And this also means that you know, is this a large number? How can I compare this number with other numbers? And for this also, how is it calculated? And there I said to you that within this number, only because we have defined this, we do not find this number within there. We just don't count this number in the general government debt number. But of course, it's there. About demographic change, we have already talked about in Germany. We have made, I think, 20 years ago, the decision that we are slightly going upward with our retirement age. Though every year right now, it is shifted 2 months, and it will right now stop in 2030 when we have reached 67 years. Yeah, my forecast is that it won't stop. That in the next years we make a decision because we look at the financing situation of our retirement costs, and then I think we see stopping at 67, then we have a problem in financing all these payments. And one easy possibility to reduce these costs is to make a new law and saying that we have to work longer in our country. So in the beginning of my 50s, so I think I have to work until 70. And I have a quite nice job, and therefore it's, I think, no problem for me because I'm happy in doing what I'm doing. But if you want to start to work here in Germany, please don't be surprised if it's not stopping at 67. The interest rate of the main refinancing operations, a very long named variable, but this is, yeah, so to speak, the main interest rate of our central bank, and this was lowered to 2.15%. And then the question is, how feeds this number into the capital markets? What does it mean? And especially, although due to the global situation, we do not look in that detail anymore at the issue of climate change, I think this is also something we cannot, unfortunately, just define away. It will come, or it already comes. We see that the weather in general is changing. If you look at the countries in the Pacific Ocean, which are vanishing because the water is becoming, the water level is becoming higher. And this also we just see here in our region. We also see this. And yeah, because of this in Germany, we have made the decision to shut down our nuclear power plants. The last one has been shut down in last year. And then we have the plan to also shut down also all our coal-fired power plants in 2038. We are in an industrial developed country. We do not want to go down in our standard of living level. And for this, we need energy. So the energy has to come from somewhere else. And right now we are in a very big transformation process in our country. This is, yeah, has then of course also a large economic impact doing this. And then regionally, maybe you have heard of this. In the starting of the Ukraine crisis, Ukraine war, we had the situation that half of our gas imports came from Russia, and just within some weeks, there was no gas anymore from Russia. And because of this, we have, maybe you have seen this, it's just at the beach where I'm living. It's not in Wilhelmshaven, it's in this small village, Roxil. There we had this LNG terminal where then you can import liquid gas from other countries just by shipping around it the whole world. So mainly it comes now from the United States and Qatar. And the first one was situated just within a few months in 2022. And now we have a second one, and it is also planned to have here a third one. And this then would mean for this region that we regionally the largest gas supplier for our whole country here. And this has, of course, also an economic impact on this region. I say hopefully that the politicians know that this is a big chance to come up in this region a little bit. But it is not clear that we really participate. Then it could be also that all this energy just goes through our region. We see if something will develop then here. Okay, so then I'm done with my overview, and I don't see my clock. Oops, where is it? Now I see it. Good. Back again. And I told you that in my opinion it is very useful to have a good description of your current situation, and here in this lecture of the current situation of the whole economy. And for this we start now with the first concept to describe the developments in an economy, and this is the so-called circular flow. And I introduce it from a historical perspective. Where does this concept come from? And if we go back in history, then we find it the first time when, yeah, science really started to develop in a broad way here in Europe, and especially if you look at economics, well, where starts the science of economics? not very surprisingly, in the largest economies in these times, and this was France and UK. In UK, from UK, maybe you know Adam Smith with his main books, The Inquiry in the Wealth of Nations, maybe, so to speak, the starting point of economics. And the other powerful country was France, just before the French Revolution in the 18th century, and also medicine was developing there. The first time we really looked at the human beings, cutting them off, the dead people, of course, and then we found the blood circulation. And what you quite often do in science, if you have a good concept in one part of the science, then you try to apply it in another one. And this guy, the physician François Quesnay, he should be also the physician of the French king during this time, Louis the 15th. And well, then he said, what I see there, blood is going out and then going in at the other side. This is something similar which we see in the whole society. If we look at the different sectors here, the different classes of society, then they interact economically, they interchanging goods and services. On the other way, they are interchanging money, and these interactions are just also a flow in and a flow out, just similar to our blood circulation, and therefore this is called in French tableau économique, and this is a picture of his tableau économique. So this is just, yeah, a possibility to describe in a proper way the economy. And then he looked at the society in the 18th century, and from an economic standpoint, he asked who is mainly producing in our society. And going back 300-400 years in time, then this means 90% of our production are more or less in one sector, and this is the agricultural sector. Later on, I will show you how large relatively to the whole economy is now in Germany or in developed countries, the agricultural sector, and then you see we have a dramatic shift in this part of the economy. So this, therefore, he called class productive, the agricultural sector. Well, we have two main production factors in the agricultural sector. This is labor, if we are working, and the other one is capital, and capital in the agricultural sector is just land. And unfortunately, the people who work in the agricultural sector in these times didn't own their other production factor. This production factor was mainly owned by the nobleman and the church, so the clergymen. And then during these times, we have the development of the so-called third class, the people living in the cities, becoming more important, and more important. And they, here he said, they are, so to speak, something in between these two classes, the class propriétaire and the class productive, and therefore he called them class sterile. And yeah, in general, the people living in the cities, so who are trading, the merchants, and who are manufacturing, the artisans. So we could call them maybe the trading sector. So we have these three sectors, and now you see here which kind of exposition he used, because now collecting the data, how should we look at this data? And the first one, I think you have also already seen in other lectures. If you have your lecture cost calculation, financing, controlling, or something like this, that we use just the account form where you have the active part and the passive part. And here you see, of course, he has also used in the starting point the account form. What else can we use? We can also, in a maybe more compact way, use it, exposing all the data in a matrix that we maybe say in this direction. We write what is going out, and in the columns, we write what is coming in. This is a very compact form. Later on, we will talk when this exposition is useful. And the last one, maybe you know it from school, is we just write down all our sectors, taking arrows in the direction, what is going out, to which sector it is going in, and then you write just at the arrows the numbers, how much is coming from one sector to the other. Well, this seems quite theoretically, and therefore we just take one little example and use all the three forms. How can we translate what I've written down here? Starting point, still a German one. So the next slides I have already given you the account form, the matrix form, and the graphical way. Then let's start. We are in September, so in the agricultural sector, we just have produced with our capital land 5 monetary units. And for what do we use these 5 monetary units? First of all, we say we use it within our sector, so we are buying from our own. And then we could say, well, we take 2 of our units on the one side of our accounting table, going to the other side. This would be the first part. Then we say we need some new tool maybe, and therefore we are buying from the agricultural sector something manufactured, and for this one from the passive side to the active side. Next one. The bishop is coming and he says, well, this is my land you are producing on. You have to pay your rent for this one. Where do I have to take this example? From which accounting table to which accounting table, and from what side to what side? Yep, right. Yep. So this one. This is then 3. Then assume we are not in a dictatorship, so the king If he buys some bread, he is really paying. Where do I find this? Oh, we can also ask the internet. Zip. So you can just type it in the chat if you want. So the agriculture sector is getting it and he is paying. And the last one, also the people in town want to eat something. Uh, something is two units of rent, sorry. This has to be a 2 and then and you have if you have a look at your accounting tables, is it possible that we are already done? What is in general the condition for an accounting table? Yeah, no? Yes, both sides have to be the same, so every accounting table has to be closed. Then let's have a look. Here we have 2 plus 1 plus 2, 2 plus 1 plus 2. Fortunately, we could say both is 5, and so let's say we are done. But here we have 2, and here we have 1, and here we have 1, and here we have 2. So there's something missing. Now, of course, we could think of 10, 20 other examples, interactions between all these three sectors, which could have happened in order to close every accounting table. But if you have a look at it, I think you can also think about a quite easy possibility to close every sector. From where to where should we then take one example? Well, they have got their rent and they only are eating for one. So they still can, so to speak, buy something. And then let's say they are buying something in town. The bishop is buying a golden chair with one monetary union. And this would be then some 6 example. And in the end, we see then that all our accounting tables are closed. Let's put this inside here. 6 means then E is buying for one monetary unions from H. And since this is a new one, I take another color. Why is it not now? Check. So here we have then the condition. Every accounting table has to be closed. Then let's take the next exposition. Let's say this direction out and this direction in. So first of all, we have only one example where we have an inner sector independence, dependence, and no other. So here, then of course, in the diagonal elements, we have to be a 0 and the 2 in out in the agricultural sector. But then if we take here, for what is the agricultural sector something else buying, then we see the second one, this would be the first one, buying manufactured commodities for one monetary union would be then here. Second, and we have to pay the rent of an amount of 2. Third, then what is going out? Now we have to switch into the columns of the column of the agricultural sector. Here E is buying a bread for one monetary unit. This would be then 4. And H is buying something to eat for 2. And the last one, E, is buying for one monetary union. It's all going out now. He is paying for his golden change chair for one monetary union. And this would be then 6. And the other way around, we have nothing. So no tax paying of the people in the towns. And then we have here a 0. And then if we recapitulate our condition, since this is just only another exposition of the same data, therefore we have also to find this condition within our table here. So what is the condition in the matrix similar to the condition that both sides are equal, that every accounting table is closed? Where can we find this information? Who has an idea? Internet can participate via the chat. Yeah, great. That it is. So we are looking at the lines here on this side, and then we look at the column also of P and summing both up, and these two sums have to be the same. Hopefully you know from statistics or from school this letter. This should be a Greek S for summation. When you have calculated arithmetic means or something like this, I think you have seen this, that this then means summing up all data points. So here, let's take another color. 2 plus 2 plus 1, 2 plus 2 plus 1. And this we have to do for every sector. So 2 plus 0 plus 0, 1 plus 0 plus 1. And the last one, let's take green. 1 plus 1 plus 0 and 2 plus 0 plus 0. So the sum of every line of a sector has to be equal to the sum of the column of the same sector. And let's go then to the graphical representation. Well, maybe doing this is the most easy one because we just say from which sector it's going out and to which sector it's going in, drawing an arrow and then also using this direction out and in. So the first one would be from P to P. The second one from P to H. The third one, the rent paying from our rural people to the bishop or the king. This was payment of rented to, and this was the third one. Then so, and here I have to draw the circle. Then we are getting in the agricultural sector 1 from E, and we are getting from the people in town 2, and the golden share, he is buying his golden share from some manufacturer in the town, and this was 1, number 6. Again, where do we find our general condition? Columns equals sums of columns equals sum of the lines, closing the accounting table. How can we find this? Yeah, definitely. We just look at every sector and then looking what is going in and what is going out, and these numbers has to be equal. I think I use the same colors, so H is green. Let's start here, in and out. These are then just the both sides of your accounting table. Going in is the one here, and out is going this one. Fortunately, we find it. The second one was yellow or, oops. Yep, then we are here. So going in is this one, and going out are these two. And the last one was red, agricultural sector. This in and out. This is going in. This is going out. And this is going out. Have I done something wrong here in the direction? I think so. This is good that I am doing this, because P is P to H. This is going out. Yeah. Thank you very much. So of course, in the end, you have always to look at your tables and data that you have done everything right. And since this condition has to hold, then of course we know that we have done something wrong. No, it's not. Not. I have to be a bit slower. So this one. This is going in, but something has to be wrong, or no? Yeah, this is the first one. This I have here. This and this is going out. This is so this is also my two. This I have also. Oh, they are both going in. No, I haven't done something wrong. This is good. So, and this is going on in. Because sometimes I'm doing something wrong because I do not prepare always my slides fully, because I think it is better that we are doing this together. So in this case, I haven't done something wrong, but if I'm doing something wrong, I'm not that unhappy that this happens, because then we also know or see together that we have to be careful, and sometimes finding mistakes is a good thing, because then you know that you have understood what you are doing. Okay, so the sum of all inflows have to be equal to the sum of all outflows, and this is now important, at every sector. Yeah, and then maybe you can ask, why do we use three different kind of expositions? Well, it always depends on your question, for which question I want to use the exposition. So maybe the first one, the accounting form, is maybe somehow the most detailed one. Because of course, in the end, we have not only three sectors, we have much more. And then looking at every single sector, you have an exposition in a very detailed way that you then there at every sector you get the information out. And this is, yeah, the form how you collect the data in your company and also in your in a country, in the whole economy. These are your Excel tables or using SAP or something else. And then the matrix form, where is it? Here. Maybe it's a little bit more compact. And yeah, and if you look at it with the in and out, then you see somehow what is going in and directly. So in is in columns and out is in the lines. And so you see in a very compact form what is going in and what is going out. And this you use in the so-called input-output calculations. And the last one, the graphical form, you already see it here. And in a minute, we change to the modern circular flow, where we have more sectors. And then you see, well, this becomes very fast quite complicated. So looking at it, you do not see anymore that much. And therefore, doing this in the real world, you won't find it quite often. But at one part, you find it very often, and this is here if you want to introduce this concept. Because we have to admit it is a quite good thing keeping in mind these arrows, then you can recapitulate what is this concept about? What does my accounting table means? And therefore you will find it in almost every textbook. Not only in macroeconomics, but also in accounting and everywhere else that you see, so to speak, these flows. But if you have then inflows and outflows, 100 or something like this, and drawing all these arrows, you won't see anything else, anything anymore in the end. Question? Pardon? Yeah, in general, of course, you use your sectors, and you will see now. It's a good way then. Then we switch. Which sectors do we use in today? Then you just interchange your classes with the other sectors, and the exposition then in the graphical form is conceptually, of course, the same. And in general, we use here, as we have already mentioned, demand and supply. This is the household sector, and this is the enterprise sector companies. Then, of course, looking at macroeconomics, we have one very important large economic agent, and this is the government. And we are not alone on our planet. In the world, there are other countries. We have connections to other countries, but in this lecture, we will have a look in a very aggregate way. So we say there is overseas, there is abroad, just at one sector. And we are in a modern economy. In the end, we are looking at the money flows. Of course, behind these money flows, or like a mirror, you have the exchange of goods and services. And in a modern economy, of course, we have the development of the financial sector, banks, insurances, investment funds, everything is this in some textbooks. There you will sometimes only find the banking sector, but this is definitely not enough describing the whole um, uh, uh, financial institutions. So I call them FI, financial institutions in general. So then let's say these are banks, insurances, insurance companies, um, investment funds, pension funds, and much more you can think of. And coming to our condition, every table has to be closed. The sums of columns and lines has to be the same. This is then called that all incoming flows and equal the outgoing flows, the axiom of the closed circle here. And we hopefully assume that we really catch all relevant flows. Well, behind this is collecting data, and in a practical way, we know that we cannot get every data we want to have. And when we later on look at economic performance calculated based on gross domestic product, then we have parts of these aggregate variables where we can only estimate the numbers. So then at last, let's develop this total circular flow in general. Let's start with the household sector and the companies, the enterprise sector. What kind of connection where we have a money flow between these sector we can think of? Pardon? Not housing, households, please, because households would be construction. Yeah, what they are doing and why? Yeah, and how do we call this then when we are getting something as a household, as a person from some company in general? What, pardon? A project, yeah, but in general, what economically, what we are doing? Yeah, 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 this, well, this in general we would call consumption, consuming. So CH, consumption of households. The money flow back. When is the enterprise sector paying something to the household sector? Well, enterprise is not paying taxes to households. Then we are going to the government in the next step. Yeah, wages, of course. Many people are employed at the companies. Y-H-U-E, sorry. Wages of E to H. Well, and this in general means that we are done. These are the main flows between these two sectors. And you already mentioned it, the government, hopefully the enterprise pay taxes. If they have a good tax division, then they will come down to almost zero paying taxes. So taxes of enterprises. Unfortunately, we have also to pay taxes. TH. Tax payments of H and E. And this is, yeah, one of the main parts how the government is financing its budget. And with this budget, he repays something to our enterprises and households. What is the repayment? Here, also wages, salaries, YHG, wage from G to H. You added already something else? What else? You have here? Pardon? Yeah, government to households. What else? Hmm? The services in general and, well, pensions. Yeah, pensions is one of the main part. And in general, we would say then these are generally transfers from the government to the households. ZH, transfers from G to H. Pensions, we have talked about this, unemployment fees, healthcare, many, many things. And a repayment from the government to enterprises. Uh, Tax benefits, yeah, and this also some general transfers to them. Loans, then we are going to our financial institutions because they are then in between. This would be then the next one. Okay. So transfers from U to E, for example, subsidies. And then is there also a large part from government to enterprises. If you just look around here, what is government also doing? Where are you sitting? In a university, and you are sitting in the building of a university. Yeah, this is the very general what is, but if we build some, well, if we have here a public building which is built by a private company. So you just look for this thing, what is this building for? But this building has been built, I think, 30 years ago or something like this. And what has then the government has done? Just buying products from the enterprise sector. This is then just government consumption, also a very large part. CG, government consumption. And then you already mentioned it. We have the interconnections of our sectors with the financial institutions, because now you can, if you look now at what is going in and what is going out, and you are left with something back, what we are then doing, then we can save this. And where do we save? We save at the financial institutions. Or here, in this part, in the enterprise sector, if there we have something left, then we have profits. And with these profits, we can go to the capital markets, also to the financial institutions. And in general, also the government, there could be something left. And in Germany, in many textbooks, you don't find this part. But especially in Germany, for the 10 years between financial crisis and the Corona crisis, there we really had the situation that we had left in the budget, in the public budget, something, and we put it back roughly in 2 digits of billion euros. So in general, I'm running out of time. We have savings from all three sectors, and having collected all these money, what are the financial institutions doing with this money? Well, they asked, do you want to invest? Do you want to have a credit? So out of this collected money, we are financing the credits, and of course, every sector can also invest. So IE, IG, and IH, so I and S, investment and savings of every sector. The last one, overseas, abroad. This we want, there we want to look in a very aggregate way. So mainly we say we have an interconnection between the enterprise sector and abroad. So two arrows, something is going in, something is going out. Very surprising, this we call exports and imports. And now think carefully about it, what we are showing here, at which arrow I have to write exports and at which arrow I have to write imports. Yeah. From A to E, it's exports. Yes, this is right. Great. And why? Because exports are going out. Why are you writing the exports on the ingoing arrow? Germany is delivering the cars to United States, to Italy or something like this. So there's something going out and you say the exports are going in. Why are you saying this? Is this right? Yeah. Yes, great. This is about the money. When we are selling cars, the money is coming in. Then, of course, we can think of many connections between the household and overseas, but there we say we collect all in and outflows. Then we have a number, and this we call then netto transfers. But be careful, this number can be larger or less than zero. We don't know. We have talked about Germany. We are a society becoming older and older and older. And this means in general, there will be an outflow from the households to foreign countries, because why? We think of investment, and especially in developing countries, there is the idea that there you find higher yields than compared to a developed country like us. So this would be netto transfers. And then the axiom of a closed circle, exports minus imports could be the same as the netto transfers, but we don't know. It's here the decisions of the enterprise. Here we have the decisions of the households. It could be, but it do not has to be. And therefore, we need also another connections, and then we can think of, well, where does it then happen when these numbers do not match? Well, then the financial situation of the whole country is changing. And therefore, a last arrow from financial institutions to abroad, and this number then we can calculate from our already given numbers, because at this number this has to be equal to exports are going out. If I take the direction within abroad, I have to have plus exports. Imports are going abroad. The direction is now also abroad, so I have to have a minus. And also I define this in the direction to the foreign countries, and then also minus netto transfers. And how do I call this? This I call then the current account of a country. And within this current account, last one, exports minus imports, this is the known trade balance of a country. Part of the current account is the trade balance. So 5 minutes. Hopefully next week I do not make overtime. So then we are done for this week, and next week we meet then on Wednesday. Thank you very much.